My guest tonight left the corporate life to serve in the public sector. Ben Akabueze talks to me tonight about making a difference in the public sector. This is Chimstock Africa.
From Cape Town to Cairo and from Mogadishu to Dakar, this is Chimstock Africa. Here's your host, Chim Onyebilanma.
Hi there, my name is Chim Onyebilanma, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Chimstock Africa. We always are delighted to hear from you. Here's an email from Kemi Akinola, who didn't quite indicate where she's based. It says, "Dear Mr. Chim Onyebilanma, I wanted to thank you very much for all the work that you and your team are doing in putting on Chimstock Africa. Since discovering your show some months ago, it has certainly been a refreshing blessing to me, and I've been edified, encouraged, and challenged by the various episodes. I pray that God will continue to take you higher and use your show as a catalyst within and beyond Africa. May God also meet all your needs. Amen. God bless you richly, sir," she says, signed off as Kemi. Now, Kemi graciously sent us a gift to support this ministry using our secure online PayPal platform. We will be delighted if you too can prayerfully consider supporting this ministry. Kindly use the address on the screen. Do keep sending us your comments or questions. Now, we often complain that our government is not doing much, yet there are many dedicated Christians who God has called to the public service and who are making a difference. My guest tonight, Pastor Ben Akabueze, left the post of CEO of one of the top banks in Nigeria to go into the public service. He chose to forfeit his high-income position to serve in the government for a fraction of what he used to earn. He's one of the architects and executors of what is known as the Lagos Mega City Project, which sought to solve the many mega problems of Lagos and bring tangible transformation to the largest city in Nigeria and, of course, in Africa. Ben is a Nigerian economist and the current Director General of the Budget Office for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He served 2 terms as the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget within the Lagos State Government. Ben is also a pastor of a large church in Lagos, the King's Court in Lagos. Please join me now as I go into my conversation with Pastor Ben Akabueze. Please don't go away. My guest today is Pastor Ben Akabueze. Welcome to the show, Pastor Ben.
Thank you, Tim. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for taking our time to be with us. Pastor Ben is the Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, and we're here in Abuja in his office. Pastor Ben, one of the things for me as I look at your life, you've had a long career in banking as well as working in the government. So you work both in the private and the public sector right now. It's the role you played as one of the architects, as we've come to know, of what is called the Lagos Mega City Project, the particular project that visibly transformed Lagos. How did you come into that?
It wasn't something I sat down and thought about and planned.
I'm going to change
over
Lagos.
Time. No, but I mean, because I'm a person of faith, I know that things don't just happen. So even though I didn't know it, that must have been in God's plan and purpose for my life. Because when I left banking, I had no intention to go and work for government. Indeed, I had been invited to serve in the cabinet as Commissioner for Finance in my home state previously, and I had politely declined that it wasn't part of. But when I left, and 3 days to the day that Governor Tinubu said to me, almost in a casual conversation, "Ben, how about joining my cabinet?" I had, it had dropped that into...
God had spoken to you somehow.
Yes, just God often speaks to me in a conversational sort of manner. And so I said, how about if you were invited to serve in the cabinet of Lagos State. I mean,
And this was before he brought it up in any way.
And I mean, there was no precedent, and wasn't something that had happened.
Especially because you're not an indigene, you come from the east. It would be the first time anybody from the east of the ethnic group that rules Lagos would be finding itself in such a position.
It wasn't just about Lagos, any part, state at all.
Okay, I thought it was just Lagos.
No,
okay.
I mean, so it wasn't something.
There was no precedence. Okay.
It wasn't therefore something I had thought possible or I had planned about, and so I had 3 days of thinking about this and it all, whatever. And
here comes the governor.
Getting, okay, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Not because, it fitted into my, area. But I thought, this, this will actually, contribute to beginning to build the kind of nation that we want to see.
People pull back from government because they feel, well, over here, when you get into that place with all the red tapes, with all the pressures that come upon you, one, there's a tendency to compromise the very faith that propelled you to serve. And secondly, there is the limitations that come through all the red tape, so that you wonder, I have the space, a position, but the impacts of my decision and what I want to happen to Mr. A or B right there on the street, from me to him is not getting there because of all this red tapes. And so they either stay in a private place or they become a pastor. You're a pastor, but do you find this to be true? Are you, let's take the first one, are you hindered? Do you find a space to really impact, to be able to come up with an idea God gave you and see it work out to Mr. A, the ordinary Jones on the street?
Well, first of all, a lot of people pretend like even in the private sector, there are no limitations. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur, the owner, manager of your business. But I wasn't in that position. I was a professional manager.
Okay.
And so even as CEO of the bank, I had a board. I had shareholders. Oh yes, and there were times you'd like to go in a particular direction, and the board will say no, or at least slow you down, and you will have to persuade them that was the right decision, that the right direction in which to to proceed. So that's one. Secondly, again, I was privileged to, have to work with leaders who had a clarity of vision and the direction in which they wanted to take, Lagos, and who were very clear about the place of Lagos in Nigeria, in the subcontinent, and even more globally in the whole world, among the black race, as the leading city of the black race.
Yes.
So these were people with a sense of purpose and history, and people who were sufficiently confident in themselves to lay out the direction and let give you the space
to do your contribution should be.
Absolutely.
We'll stop here and we'll come back after the short break. Don't go away. I'm talking with Pastor Ben Akabueze. Hi there. This program is made possible by the generous donations of people like you who believe in our vision. Our passion is to be Christ-centered as well as Afrocentric as we discuss the issues that face us in Africa so as to equip and challenge African believers like you to be salt and light right in their neighborhood. Your gifts to this ministry can make a huge difference. I encourage you to prayerfully consider partnering with us today. Please go to our website to find out how you can give today. Thank you in advance for your support. Welcome back to the second part of my interview with Pastor Ben Akabueze. Pastor Ben is both the pastor of a large congregation in Lagos as well as the Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation of the Government of Nigeria. Pastor Ben, before we went on the break, we were talking about impacts. And I said people draw back from going into public space like you have because of two reasons. You did answer the first one about there was impact being made. What about the second one of compromise to one's faith?
For me personally, I didn't think that moving from private sector to public sector changed who I was. You know, as far as I was saying, it was all still in process of service to humanity through, you know, my career, my profession. I always felt that I was a Christian called to the marketplace. Yeah. Okay, and even though I was bivocational, you know, called to ministry as well, I felt you know, my principal place of ministry was in the marketplace, and so. I mean, I've been an ordained pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God since 1994. And so that was 6 years before I became managing director of now
the bank,
bank then. And what I found a bit frustrating in my early days in public office was I had spent, you know, I spent 5.5 years as managing director, chief executive of a bank. In that time frame, I gave a lot of interviews. But, you know, the question of corruption, of how do you deal with corruption, how do you never used to come up. I mean, they ask you all kinds of whatever.
The perception we have is the guys there are cleaner than whoever is in government. You feel that's a wrong perception.
Precisely. That's what I'm leading to. And then I come into the publicity and no interview, not even this one, as you can see.
I stand.
It's complete without a question on this. I thought to myself, hey, surely everyone must know that corruption is not something peculiar to
it's not just in the government.
You basically determine who you are and who you are. There is the principle, you know, of convergence, which, you know, living, you know, which my friend, incidentally, I don't know if you know him, Fred Johnson.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about him.
Yes, you know, he's a big proponent of this, and the point that it makes the basic point that a lot of Christians live a dichotomized,
which is so
life.
True, so true.
So there are one person in church and a different person in, whereas what God is looking for is total harmony in our lives, you know. For me, the people who invited me to serve in Lagos State, they knew who I was and they knew what
you stood for,
I stood for, and what I could do and what I couldn't do, and that didn't change. The people who invited me, you know, to run the bank that they owned, that, you know, knew what you know I stood for, who was that thing, and so public office shouldn't. Really, it is, however, true, and I concede that you know, corruption tends to be more pervasive in the public sector. Maybe because again, the public, you know, service impacts practically everybody. So everybody gets to, you know, encounter that corruption in the public service, and so it gets more talked about. It was way from even back in my younger days in banking. I knew there were officers who, even to write a credit, they would, you know,
get a kickback.
A credit officer, they would look for stuff and whatever this thing. And
going back to yourself, you've been in this space for quite a while now, and have you been able to? How have you been able to? What have you? You definitely must have faced some temptations.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if it's as pervasive as you said, it will be staring at your face. One, can you tell us how God has helped you?
I mean, I remember one incident when some folks came to me when I was in Lagos State, and they wanted me to do something improper, you know, and so they could get some money. And I looked at them and I said, listen, guys, I said, I want you to understand something. I don't need money any less than you guys do. And I don't want to be rich any less than you guys do. I said, but the reason I don't do the sort of stuff that you're asking me to do for my own benefit is because I'm desperate to make heaven. I said, so, and you come here, you know I don't do such stuff for my own, you ask me to do it for you. You know, so I said, does this make any sense to you at all? That what I don't do, I said, because I should do for you.
For you.
And they all went crestfallen, they out down, and they apologized and left. Okay, but you know, talking about temptation, shortly after I joined, it was a certain contractor who will remain unnamed approached me and said, oh, we hear that you have this plot of undeveloped land. You know, we would like to help, you know, we did for you, never mind. We have discreet ways of
doing these things.
Of doing these things, and nobody would. This thing. And I said, no, thanks. Okay. And, you know, by the grace of God, it took me several years. Ultimately, got that plot of land developed.
And still on your road to heaven. which is the most important thing.
You know?
Pastor Ben, people look at the government and they see people like you who want to make heaven, who love the Lord, who are there. They're happy to hear that you're keeping your principle, but they say, what are those people doing up there? We're suffering down here. Do you get that? I mean,
yes,
like, even when we talk about Lagos, someone would say we've not seen the kind of Rwanda shifts in Lagos. So this is basically playing the devil's advocate here, but these are real questions. Yesterday, a friend of mine was coming into Abuja and he said, oh, I'm interviewing Pastor Ben. I said, what are they doing up there? Do you get those kind of,
you know,
what do you say to those?
All the time. But, you know, what is it? You know, it's easy to imagine that there's no impact because it's not possible to like simulate the. So people, with all those Christians, it's almost like when people say, with all the prayers going on in Nigeria,
what is God doing?
What's God doing? Why is the country still the way it is?
People outside actually say that with all the Christians in Nigeria, what is going on in Nigeria?
The question to pause and ask is, first, I mean, there's no doubt that God answers prayers.
Yes.
There's no doubt that there are Christians, praying Christians in Nigeria. So if, despite of that, things are this way, can you ponder what it could have been without
the reverse,
those prayers and whatever? And that's a situation that is nigh impossible to then, whatever, so that you can do a proper comparison. It's the same thing, with all those people, things could have been a lot worse. This is something that I take from the Lagos Business School. The Lagos Business School, LBS, propagates a philosophy that we call the oasis of sanity. And all alumni of LBS are encouraged to go out there and create an oasis of sanity around them. And in this whole maddening space and whatever, wherever you are within your sphere of influence, as much as it concerns you, to enthrone sanity, to enthrone, order, to enthrone, high ethical, standards, and make sure things work, there. And the idea is that ultimately, as the universe of people creating oases of sanity around them keeps growing, these oases will fuse into one mighty ocean of sanity. But during the period where it's all dispersed, people are creating oases of sanity in their own corners, the impact may not be felt, and it will seem like not much is happening. But there's a lot that is happening. And that's basically one way that I react to
such comments.
These comments. So, I mean, today we have the vice president who clearly
is a believer.
Yes, and tell you that something has changed around that office, the way things are run.
Done.
I mean, the social investment program of government that is under that office. Many of the beneficiaries will testify
that things are changing for them.
Things have changed for them. That ordinary Nigerians who knew nobody, had no connections, they were able to access, these programs. So when people say nothing is, oftentimes they're just saying, okay, in their own corner.
They're not seeing a lot happening.
It hasn't happened for them. And I say this with a lot of, regret. And I had to say so recently, at some other, Christian, forum. A large majority of even believers who I encounter since my time in public office are usually not engaging you about how things can be better for Nigeria. But everybody's looking for themselves, how you can use your office to help them. Yes, to give them an undeserved advantage. The fact that I do this for you because you're, does it make it less corruption than? So the same people who complain about corruption will come to you
for special favors.
For special favors. They will expect you, to breach the processes for them.
You have a large schedule, a heavy schedule. You're a pastor of a large church, the King's Court in Lagos. And at the same time, you have your office in Abuja. These are two faraway cities. You live in two cities. You have your family, father, husband, as well as your role as the head of the budget office. How do you put all of this together?
Well, it's just one word, grace.
I thought that would be what you would say.
But I'd say it not as cliche. Things like this. But this how oftentimes when people ask me, they expect me to launch into
one big deep secret.
10 principles of
10 keys, 10 keys.
And I say it's the grace of God. And that's truly what I believe. And so I don't struggle with trying to. I just trust the Holy Spirit to guide me through all of this. The other thing that helps me keep early in my walk with God, when I became a worker in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, during our workers training, we were taught something called the God in order for our lives. And he said, priority number one is your relationship with God.
God, yeah.
So God is first. Second, your spouse, if you're married. Third, the children. Fourth, your job, if you're in the job where you get paid. Then fifth, your ministry. Of course, if you're in full-time ministry,
the two becomes
one. And so, if you are a single guy, no wife, no child,
you jump to number 4.
God to, and you're in full-time ministry, so it's down to 2. So you've got to. But the most important, thing about this order,
the
biggest thing it did for me was to make that distinction between God and ministry.
Yes.
That your relationship with God is number one priority.
Before the ministry.
The ministry is number 5, and the two of them don't mean the same thing.
Which is where we find the mix-up. Exactly. And sometimes you feel that because you're reading the Bible to preach to people, you are reading the Bible for yourself. I normally tell people, you better make sure that when you go into your private time with God, you are reading the Bible to hear from God for yourself before you now think of feeding other people, or else you dry up.
Precisely.
You can be having nice messages and still be drying up. So your secret has been that order.
So getting that order
is how you tap grace.
Yes, and then tapping into grace to just what to ever at any point in time to make the right choices in terms of, because truth is sometimes there's scheduling conflicts, and you've got to
decide.
Just guide me as to which one that is thing. And so far,
God has been faithful. What do you see in the future for Pastor Ben? What do you see? If I know a person like you, you don't feel you're retiring now. You're seeing something in front. What do you see in front?
Well, I mean, as for retirement, one thing I know, there's no retirement from
serving the Lord. Yeah,
that there's no retirement. So in this job, there'll be retirement down the road when God says it's time to to quit. But I believe that, and I've sensed it, that there's a lot more that one has to offer. I believe that my work isn't done yet. This thing. And so I'm constantly seeking to make myself available to Him. God. And I know that God is more interested in my availability than my ability. As I make myself available, and this is in the integrity of my heart, He will supply the ability
to do the things you're supposed to do.
And ambition. Ambition is one thing that is not, whether it's in the whether it's in the job, my job, or in ministry. Oh, of course, by the grace of God, and God has blessed me with excellent health. I work very hard. On the average, I sleep 4 hours a day. But I know that it's not, it's not about the hard work. I know that there's a God factor, and the life of man would ultimately determines what comes to you. But it's to this thing and say, Lord, just what next?
So you've just been walking with God. I mean, as you speak, I go back even to the story you told of how you got into public service. It's just been walking with God, and God at the fork of the road saying, turn left, turn right. Yep. It's not a man seeking to build one empire or the other, just being available and see how much God has done through you. Just because of the availability, and millions of people are being imparted. Thank you so much for what you do. Before we end, you have a last word, and you can look into that camera and encourage whoever is watching you, whether he's in Nairobi, or he's in Lome, or he is in, Tembe in Uganda.
Well, I'd like to say to my brethren all across this beautiful continent of Africa that don't believe the lie about Africa being the God-forsaken continent. God has a plan and a purpose for this continent. But then, because the earth is a domain of man, God has given the earth. And so we, believers on this continent of Africa, God is counting on us to fulfill, to help Africa fulfill its potential. And we need a network across the continent of Africa, supporting each other, sharing with each other, praying for each other, helping each other, and together we will, in our own lifetime, I believe, make Africa that light to the world that God has purposed it to be. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Ben. Next week on James Talk Africa, we try to make sense of the xenophobia attacks in South Africa and what the church should be doing.
And he said this, he says, we are all being painted with the same brush.
I don't think we're talking enough about it because even inside the congregation in our churches, that hatred, xenophobia is there.
Next week on James Talk Africa.
This program is made possible by the generous financial support of believers just like you, who share our heart to equip the African church to engage the issues facing our continent. Your financial support will help us continue this important work. If you feel led to give to this ministry, please visit our website today.